Welcome to Zoe Stories. My wife's magic ring trapped me in heels. I always thought secrets were safe in marriage. That there were lines neither of us would cross, truths too strange to share, and fantasies best kept buried deep in private files and hidden browser histories. I loved my wife, Emma. Still do. But nothing, not our years together, not the vies, not the whispered confessions during pillow talk, could have prepared me for what happened the day I slipped on her ring. The day everything changed. My name is Tyler. I'm 32, a freelance web developer, and by all accounts, just your average guy. Or at least, that's what most people see. I work from home, tapping away at keyboards and sweatpants, drinking overpriced coffee, and Skyping with clients who couldn't care less what I look like, as long as their websites don't crash. But behind locked doors, when the world stops watching, I become someone else. It started out of curiosity. One night, alone and anxious, I found myself drawn to the back of our closet. Emma had always kept her accessories organized in neat velvet-lined boxes. One ring caught my eye, ornate, gold, with a swirling purple gem in the center. She'd said once it was her grandmother's, passed down through generations, but I'd never seen her wear it. I don't know what compelled me to try it on that first time. Maybe it was the thrill. Or maybe it was because even back then, I'd already started slipping into her heels when she wasn't home. Just for a moment. Just to feel something different. I cross-dressed in secret. It wasn't a passion or a kink, exactly. It was complicated. A mix of calm and chaos. A need to escape the pressure of being the guy who always had to be normal. The guy who had to suppress his curiosity, his softness, his yearning. Wearing Emma's clothes felt like a kind of freedom, but also like theft. Like I was trespassing in a world not meant for me. And yet, I kept returning. Emma and I had been married 3 years, and things between us were mostly good. She was strong, ambitious, confident, the kind of woman who walked into a room and owned it. I adored her, but there was a part of me she didn't know. Couldn't know. She believed I was confident too, secure in my masculinity. The kind of guy who could fix a leaky sink, manage finances, and make her laugh even when her job at the law firm drove her crazy. And I was that guy. But I was also the guy who sometimes spent hours imagining what it'd feel like to walk through the world in a pencil skirt and heels. What it would be like to be seen not just as a man pretending, but as a woman, fully, completely. Of course, I never told her. Why would I? She'd think it was weird. Or worse, dishonest. She'd think I'd been hiding things from her. Which I guess I was. So I kept it to myself. I waited for moments when she was out of town or running errands. I rehearsed caution like a ritual. Lock the bedroom door. Put everything back in perfect order. Wipe off any trace of lipstick from my face before she got home. And yet that ring. That stupid, beautiful ring. The moment I slid it onto my finger, I felt a tingling warmth in my skin. It was subtle at first, almost like the blood rushing after your hands fallen asleep. But then it spread. Up my arm, across my chest, down to my toes. I gasped and staggered back, my reflection in the mirror rippling like a heat wave. I thought I was hallucinating, but it didn't stop. Within seconds, my whole body felt different. My arms looked slimmer. My waist narrowed. My chest tingled as a weight formed beneath the cotton tee I still wore. I stood there, jaw slack, watching as my entire body changed shape, hips flaring, Adam's apple vanishing, hair spilling over my shoulders like dark silk. I'd been transformed. Fully. Entirely. Into a woman. I yanked off the ring in terror and collapsed on the floor, shaking. And just like that snap, I was back to normal. A guy again. Standing in a mess of clothes, sweat clinging to my brow. I didn't understand it. Didn't believe it. But I couldn't stop thinking about it either. I knew it was Emma's ring. I also knew she'd never mentioned anything about it being magical. That seemed impossible. Insane. And yet, the next day, I did it again. Just to be sure. And the same thing happened. That second time, I stayed longer. Took in my reflection. Ran delicate fingers through my hair. Applied a bit of lipstick. Put on a pair of her heels. I nearly fell walking in them, But the thrill, the pure, unfiltered thrill of it was intoxicating. I became addicted. Whenever Emma was out, I would slip into the bedroom, slide on the ring, and become someone new. Someone beautiful, elegant, graceful. I gave her a name, Tessa. Tessa was everything Tyler wasn't. Confident, flirty, poised. Tessa could smile in the mirror and feel proud. Tyler always looked away. But as much as I loved being her, I couldn't tell Emma. She wouldn't understand. Right? That was what I told myself. Even when I knew I was going too far. Even when I found myself standing in the kitchen as Tessa, cooking dinner before Emma came home, only to rip the ring off the second I heard her key in the door. Even when I started making excuses just to stay home when she went out. I didn't see it happening at first. But slowly, surely, Tessa started taking over more of my time. And Emma started noticing. Not the clothes or the makeup, but the lies. She'd ask where I was when she called, and I hadn't picked up. Why I always seemed flustered when she came home early. Why I was constantly locking the bedroom door. I said it was work stress. She didn't believe me. Something was changing between us, and I didn't know how to stop it. And I hadn't yet realized the truth, the terrifying, undeniable truth. The ring, it wasn't just transforming me. It was binding me. And one day, I wouldn't be able to take it off. The first few times I wore the ring were nothing more than stolen moments, tinged with guilt and excitement. I'd wear it for a couple of hours, long enough to feel the transformation take hold, but not long enough for Emma to notice. It was an escape, a retreat into a version of myself that had always been tucked away. The more I wore it, the more it felt like I was walking on air, each step filled with a sense of freedom that I couldn't explain. I never thought much about it at first. It was just a bit of fun, a way to explore a side of myself I didn't understand. But as time passed, the ring's pull became stronger. There was something almost hypnotic about it. Each time I slid it onto my finger, I felt an almost immediate shift in my body. It was as if the ring was unlocking parts of me that had been hidden for years, things I didn't even know existed. I'd always thought I was secure in my identity, a man. But when I became Tessa, I felt different. I felt whole. I felt like I was finally allowing myself to exist without fear of judgment or expectation. But it wasn't just about the clothes, the makeup, or the high heels. It was about who I was when I wasn't trying to fit into someone else's idea of what I should be. But with every transformation, the stakes grew higher. The longer I stayed in the heels, the more real it felt. The more comfortable I became with the feeling of my hips swaying, my legs elongating, and my chest swelling with the softness of femininity. But that's where the internal conflict began to surface. It wasn't just a little secret anymore. It wasn't something I could easily push to the back of my mind. I was beginning to feel like Tessa wasn't just a disguise or a phase. She felt like a part of me, a side of myself I couldn't ignore. And that terrified me. The truth was I was scared that I was becoming someone else. Scared that the line between Tyler and Tessa was blurring, and that I wouldn't be able to tell where one ended and the other began. I started avoiding Emma more and more. When she went out with friends, I stayed home, my thoughts consumed with the ring. When she wasn't around, I transformed. I'd put on her clothes, slip into the high heels, and lose myself in the fantasy of being someone different. A more confident version of myself. A better version, even. But every time Emma came home, I had to quickly change back. I could feel my heart race as I tore off the dress, wiped off the lipstick, and pulled my jeans back on. I hated the way my heart sank every time I had to become Tyler again. I started lying more often. At first, it was small things, excuses about work, reasons why I couldn't meet her for dinner, or why I was too tired to go out. But as the lies grew, so did my anxiety. I couldn't bear the thought of Emma finding out. She wouldn't understand. She couldn't. It wasn't just about the crossdressing, it was about the way it made me feel. Like I was living a double life, one that she could never know about. And yet, the more I pushed Emma away, the stronger my need for Tessa became. I found myself wearing the ring even when she was at home, hoping she wouldn't notice, hoping I could just slip into Tessa for a little while longer. I'd dress up, paint my nails, put on a wig, and spend hours lost in front of the mirror. I felt powerful, confident, and alive in a way that Tyler never had. But there were moments when the guilt would flood in. When I'd look at myself in the mirror as Tessa and feel both a rush of exhilaration and a deep, gnawing sense of shame. I wasn't just hiding something from Emma, I was hiding something from myself. The more I became Tessa, the more I realized I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to be Tyler anymore. It wasn't just the physical transformation that was happening. It was emotional too. I started craving the life Tessa led, the life where I could be free, where I could walk without fear of judgment, where I didn't have to carry the weight of expectations on my shoulders. But I also knew that the more I embraced Tessa, the more I risked losing everything that Tyler had worked so hard to build. I wasn't the only one who started to notice the changes. Emma grew suspicious. She'd started commenting on the odd hours I kept, the way I seemed to always be home alone, the way I would disappear into the bedroom for long stretches of time. She asked if everything was okay. She asked if I was hiding something from her. I told her it was just stress from work. And for a while, she bought it. But then came the evening that everything shifted. It was late, and Emma had been out with friends. I had already gone into the bedroom, slipping into a silky dress of hers that I knew she would miss. I slipped on a pair of her favorite heels, the ones she had worn for our wedding, and watched myself in the full-length mirror. For the first time, I didn't feel like an imposter. I felt beautiful, confident, and completely at ease in my skin. I was Tessa. I was fully Tessa. But then the doorbell rang. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest as I quickly scrambled to remove the dress, kicking off the heels, but it was too late. The doorbell rang again. Panicking, I stuffed the dress into a drawer and threw on a pair of sweatpants, hoping to hide the transformation before Emma returned. My hands shook as I opened the door to find a delivery man holding a large package. "Sorry," he said with a smile. "Just drop this off for your wife. She wasn't home, so I figured I'd give it to you." I took the package, barely able to hold my breath. He didn't look at me twice. He left without a second thought. But as I closed the door, I realized something. Emma was on her way home. And she'd be back soon. I had to hurry. But that feeling, the feeling of transformation, of being Tessa, lingered. It wasn't just the clothes. It wasn't just the makeup or the heels. It was who I was becoming. And no matter how hard I tried to push it away, I knew that part of me was slipping away forever. The next day, Emma came home earlier than usual. I was in the kitchen, making lunch, still wearing the ring. "Hey," she said, peering over my shoulder. "How's your day going?" "Fine," I said quickly, my voice betraying the panic bubbling inside me. She stepped closer, studying me with a furrowed brow. "You okay? You seem off." I forced a smile. "Just tired." But deep down, I knew she wasn't convinced. I knew it wouldn't be long before she uncovered the truth. The days after the delivery were a blur of anxiety and excitement. I was more cautious than ever, watching every move I made, every slip of the tongue. Emma was getting more observant, more intuitive, and I could feel the walls closing in around me. Every time I looked at her, I was torn between the fear that she was about to discover my secret and the guilt of hiding a part of myself from her. I started slipping into Tessa's skin whenever I had the chance, when Emma was out, when she was busy with work, or when she spent time with friends. But even then, I felt an oppressive weight in the air, like I was constantly being watched, even if no one was physically there. It wasn't just about the physical transformation anymore. It wasn't about the thrill of wearing high heels or makeup. It was about the emotional transformation, the part of me that wanted to be free but was terrified of what that freedom might cost. One evening, I found myself staring at my reflection in the mirror for what felt like hours. I had just slipped into one of Emma's dresses again, a tight black number with lace trim, and the high heels I had grown accustomed to wearing when I took on the persona of Tessa. As I adjusted the dress, I couldn't help but notice how much more comfortable I was in this form than I ever had been in Tyler's skin. My curves were more pronounced, the way the dress hugged me felt natural, and I felt powerful, empowered by the very thing that I had been keeping secret for so long. But it was that same power that terrified me. I was on the edge of something I couldn't control, and the realization hit me like a punch in the stomach. I was becoming Tessa. I was falling into the allure of this other side of me, and with every moment I spent in her skin, I felt more and more disconnected from Tyler. It was like I had two lives now, two identities that didn't seem to align with each other. I loved being Tessa, but I feared what it meant for my marriage. Emma hadn't said anything about my behavior yet, but there were moments when I could see the doubt in her eyes, the way she would pause when she asked me a question, like she was trying to piece something together. It wasn't paranoia. I could feel it in the way she looked at me, a subtle shift in her gaze that made my pulse race. It was during one of these moments that everything changed. Emma came home early from work that day, earlier than usual. I hadn't expected her back for another hour. I had just finished applying lipstick when I heard the door open. My heart skipped a beat. I quickly wiped my mouth with a tissue, but the damage was done. She had already entered the hallway. I froze. My mind raced as I grabbed for the nearest clothes to cover up. I didn't have much time, but I had to act fast. "Tyler," Emma called from the living room. "Are you home?" "Yeah, just a second," I yelled, my voice cracking as I rushed to pull off the dress and hide it. I didn't want her to see me like this. I couldn't let her know. But the ring, Emma had no idea the pull it had on me, how it transformed me completely, how it had woven itself into the very fabric of my being. I could feel it. She was coming closer. I heard her footsteps getting louder, and suddenly, she was standing in the doorway of the bedroom. Her eyes widened for a moment as she took in the sight of me frantically scrambling to change. The heels were still on my feet, my hair was disheveled from the wig, and my makeup was half finished. "Tyler, what are you doing?" Her voice was quiet, laced with confusion, but there was also an edge to it, a hint of something else. A question. I froze, caught. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I didn't know what to say. I could feel the heat rise in my cheeks as my mind scrambled for an explanation. I just wanted to try something new," I stammered. It was a lame excuse, and we both knew it. But Emma didn't say anything at first. She just stood there, watching me. The silence between us was suffocating. I don't know what to say," I continued, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, Emma. I didn't mean to." "Mean to what?" she interrupted, her voice suddenly colder. "What is this, Tyler?
Why didn't you tell me?"
I felt the weight of her words sink into me. She was angry. She was hurt. And I had no idea how to fix it. The magic ring, the one that had allowed me to slip into Tessa's skin, had become a curse. It had trapped me in a life I wasn't sure I wanted, a secret I couldn't share, and a love I was now risking. Emma took a step forward, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "How long has this been going on?" I swallowed hard. My throat was dry, my chest tight with the pressure of my own guilt. It's something I've been exploring. I didn't want to hurt you, Emma. Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice cracked, and I could see the frustration and hurt written across her face. "Why did you keep this from me?" "I don't understand, Tyler." And that's when I realized something. It wasn't just the crossdressing that was the problem, it was the lie. The secret I had kept hidden from her. The part of myself I had been too scared to show her. "I didn't know how to," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I didn't know how to tell you about this side of me, about Tessa." Her eyes softened for a brief moment, but the tension didn't dissipate. She wasn't angry anymore. She was hurt. And I couldn't bear it. Emma took a deep breath, her gaze steady as she looked me over. "Do you want this, Tyler? Is this something you need? Because I don't know how to help you if you won't be honest with me." I stood there in silence, unsure of how to respond. Part of me wanted to reach out to her, tell her everything, how the ring had made me feel alive, how Tessa was a part of me I couldn't ignore. But the other part of me was terrified that if I did, she might leave. She might look at me differently. And then there was the ring, the magic ring that had started all of this. I looked down at my finger. The gold band seemed to gleam in the soft light of the room, its presence almost a physical weight on my skin. I knew then that I couldn't keep running from the truth. "I don't know what I want," I said softly, but I know that I don't want to hide anymore. Emma didn't say anything. She just stood there, watching me, her arms still crossed. And in that moment, I felt a shift. Something had changed between us, and I couldn't undo it. The ring had trapped me in heels, yes, but it had also trapped me in a life of uncertainty. And I wasn't sure I could find my way out. The tension in the air was suffocating. Emma's eyes were still locked on me, her face unreadable as she processed everything. The silence stretched on, pulling at the fragile threads of our relationship. The uncertainty I felt in my heart mirrored the look on Emma's face. I had just confessed my secret, something that I had hidden for so long, and now I was waiting for her reaction, afraid of what she might say next. Her arms uncrossed slowly, her posture softening, but her gaze never wavered. "So, this is what you've been hiding, Tyler? This woman you've been turning into?" The words cut through me like a blade, each syllable more painful than the last. Emma wasn't yelling, wasn't storming off in a fit of rage, but there was something worse: disappointment. The kind of disappointment that makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. I nodded slowly, unable to find the words to explain, to defend myself. "I don't know how to feel," Emma continued. "I don't know how to even begin to process this. All this time, you've been living this life behind my back, and I didn't know. The ring, that cursed, beautiful ring that had changed everything, burned on my finger." I looked at it again, its gleam like a mocking reminder of the choice I had made when I slipped it on. It had brought me comfort, it had given me the freedom to explore Tessa, but it had also driven a wedge between Emma and me. "I never wanted to hurt you," I whispered, my voice trembling. "But this side of me, it's always been there. It's part of who I am, and I couldn't keep hiding it." She sighed, her hands rubbing her temples as if trying to stave off a headache. "So, what does this mean, Tyler? What happens now? Do you plan on dressing like this all the time?" Her words were quiet, but they landed with a weight that nearly crushed me. The uncertainty of what Emma would think or do next hung in the air like thick smoke, suffocating every thought I had. I took a step forward, the heels clacking against the floor with every step. My voice was shaky as I spoke, trying to find the right words. "I don't know. I don't know what I want anymore, Emma. All I know is that this part of me, this part of Tessa, it feels real. It feels like it's who I am." I could see the conflict in her eyes. She wasn't angry anymore, but the concern was there, deep in the way she looked at me, in the way she took a step back, as though she wasn't sure whether she should comfort me or distance herself. "You've changed, Tyler," she said softly, her voice breaking a little. "I don't know who this person is. I don't know if I can keep up with this." Her words stung more than I expected. I had hoped, no, prayed, that she would accept me for who I was, even if it wasn't easy. But there was something else, something more complicated lurking in her eyes, something she couldn't say. "I don't want to lose you," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to be someone else. I just want to be me. But I can't keep pretending to be someone I'm not." Emma's gaze softened, and for a moment, I thought she might pull me into a hug, but instead, she turned her back to me. I could see her shoulders tense, as if she was holding something back, as if she was struggling with her own emotions. "Tyler, you're not just hiding from me," she said slowly, her words deliberate, like she was choosing each one carefully. "You're hiding from yourself." I stood frozen, unable to move as the truth of her words washed over me. I had been so focused on hiding this part of myself from her that I never stopped to think about how it was changing me, how it had been changing my view of myself, too. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, Tessa's reflection. The red lipstick, the perfectly applied makeup, the dress that hugged my body in ways I never thought I could. But the face staring back at me wasn't just Tessa. It was Tyler, too, a man caught in between two identities, both of them fighting for control. For a moment, I thought about running away. I thought about pulling off the heels, wiping off the makeup, and going back to being the man Emma married. But I knew it wasn't that simple. I couldn't just erase Tessa. She wasn't a mistake. She was part of me, no matter how much I wanted to deny it. "Emma," I started, but my voice cracked, the words getting caught in my throat. I couldn't say what I needed to say. I couldn't explain what was going on inside my head, what this transformation meant to me. Tyler, we need to talk. Emma's voice was firm now, like she had made up her mind. She turned to face me, her eyes tired, but resolute. We need to figure out what this means for us. She sat down on the edge of the bed, gesturing for me to sit beside her. My heart was pounding as I walked over, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Everything we had built, everything I had hoped for, felt like it was hanging by a thread. You can't keep living like this, Emma said, her voice softer now, though the seriousness in her tone hadn't faded. It's not just about what I think.
It's about you.
Who are you, Tyler? What do you want? The question was simple, but it hit me like a hammer. I had been so lost in the thrill of transformation, the allure of Tessa, that I hadn't stopped to think about what it meant for my future. Who was I now? Was I Tyler, the man who loved Emma, or was I Tessa, the woman who felt more herself in heels and dresses than ever before? I glanced down at the ring on my finger again. The golden band glimmered in the soft light, a silent reminder of the magic that had started all of this. The ring had given me the chance to explore Tessa's world, but now it was trapping me in it. I had been so captivated by the transformation, by the power it gave me, that I didn't realize the toll it would take on me, or on Emma. I don't know who I am anymore, I confessed, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I don't know what I want. Emma looked at me with a mixture of concern and sadness. Then we need to figure that out together. But Tyler, she paused, her gaze shifting to the floor. If you want to be Tessa, if that's who you really are, I don't know if I can be part of that. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. What do you mean? I asked, my voice trembling. I mean, I can't keep pretending that everything's okay, she said quietly. I don't know if I can handle you changing like this. And I don't know if I can watch you become someone else. I felt my world shatter in that moment. The future I had imagined with Emma, the life I had worked so hard to build, was slipping away, unraveling before my eyes. The ring, the transformation, everything that had once been exciting and thrilling now felt like a curse. I stood up quickly, the heels digging into my feet as I paced around the room. You're asking me to choose between who I am and who you want me to be? I said, my voice rising in frustration. I can't do that. I can't choose between Tessa and Tyler because they're both me, and you're asking me to give up one of them. Emma stood up, too, her voice shaking with emotion. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, Tyler. I don't know if I can keep living like this. I don't know if I can handle it. I didn't know what to say. The weight of the decision was too much for either of us to bear. In that moment, I felt more lost than I ever had before. And then, as if the universe decided to throw one more obstacle in our way, the doorbell rang. The air felt thick with anticipation as I walked around the house, trying to act like everything was normal. It wasn't. I was anything but normal right now. My heart beat loudly in my chest, my palms sweaty as I adjusted the hem of the black silk dress I had chosen for today. The heels on my feet felt almost too high, too foreign. Yet they had become a symbol for something I couldn't explain, something inside of me that longed to be seen. The ring on my finger glinted in the light, a small golden band that had changed everything. My wife, Emma, had given it to me as a simple gesture, an anniversary gift. Nothing extraordinary. But ever since I put it on, things had shifted. It was subtle at first. The way I began to notice the curves of women's clothing, the way my body responded to the soft touch of fabric. And then, as if by magic, I began to transform, physically and emotionally. I had never considered myself a crossdresser. I had never been interested in the idea of dressing up in women's clothes. But the first time I slipped into a dress, I couldn't explain the rush of excitement, the sense of release. It felt right in a way that I couldn't describe, like a part of me that had always been there was finally allowed to breathe. I looked in the mirror again, staring at the woman staring back at me. The makeup, the perfect red lipstick, the carefully applied eyeliner and mascara, it all felt like an armor, a way to hide the man I used to be. The man who was never brave enough to admit his own desires, to embrace the side of himself that was just waiting to come out. I was Tyler, but today I was Tessa. The transformation had been gradual. First, it was just the heels, then the dress. Then, one evening, I found myself experimenting with makeup. It wasn't until that moment that I truly realized the power the ring had over me. Every time I wore it, I slipped further into this persona, further into a version of myself I had only dreamed of. But there was a price, something I hadn't considered. As Tessa grew stronger, Tyler grew weaker. I was losing myself, piece by piece. My mind raced with the question I'd been trying to ignore for weeks. Could I really keep living like this? Was Tessa who I was meant to be, or was I just hiding from the world? The sound of the front door opening broke me from my thoughts. My breath caught in my throat. Emma was home. She didn't know about Tessa. She didn't know about this side of me. And she certainly didn't know that I had been wearing her clothes, her makeup, and stealing bits of her life for my own. I rushed to the window, peeking through the curtains to see her walking up the porch steps. She looked beautiful as always, her long brown hair swaying in the breeze. But there was something in her step today, a hesitance, a tension, that I hadn't noticed before. Had she noticed the changes in me? Had she begun to suspect? I turned away from the window quickly, a sense of panic building in my chest. I had to hide. I couldn't let Emma find out.
Not yet.
Not until I was ready to explain everything. I quickly moved to the closet, grabbing my old clothes, my jeans, my shirt, and the shoes I used to wear. I needed to change before she came inside. I couldn't let her see me like this, not when I didn't know how to explain it to her. But the ring on my finger stopped me. I looked at it, feeling its weight press down on me like a promise and a curse all at once. It had done this to me. It had made me who I was becoming. It had given me this power, this allure that I couldn't resist. I sighed and slowly removed the dress, the heels, and the makeup, trying not to feel too much shame. When I stood there in my old clothes, I almost didn't recognize the person in the mirror. The reflection of a man who had been pretending for so long, a man who didn't know who he really was, a man who had been running from himself. I heard the sound of Emma's footsteps approaching, and I quickly grabbed the last few pieces of my old identity, pulling them on with shaky hands. But it was too late. She was already at the door. I quickly moved to the kitchen, hoping I could act natural. I couldn't let her know what I had just been doing. I needed time. Time to figure out what I was doing. Time to figure out who I was. Tyler. Emma called, her voice soft but concerned. I froze, my heart pounding. She sounded like she was trying to figure out something that had been bothering her for a while now. Are you okay? I cleared my throat, forcing a smile. Yeah, just tired, I guess. I could hear the hesitation in her footsteps as she entered the kitchen. She was standing behind me now, and I could feel her eyes on me.
What were you doing in there?
I heard you moving around, but you didn't come to greet me. I took a deep breath and turned around slowly, forcing my smile to stay in place. I was getting something ready for dinner. That's all. Emma looked at me with a slight frown, her brow furrowed. She didn't believe me, and I could tell. But she didn't press the issue. Not yet, anyway. Tyler, are you sure everything's okay? She asked, her voice softer now. You've been distant lately. I don't know what's going on with you, but I feel like you're hiding something. Her words struck me to the core. It was the first time she had said anything like that, and the weight of her suspicion made my stomach twist. I'm fine, I said a little too quickly. Really? Just tired. But Emma didn't seem convinced. She crossed her arms and studied me closely, her eyes narrowing slightly, as if trying to read my thoughts. She stepped closer, reaching out to touch my arm. Tyler, what's going on? You're acting strange. I know something's wrong. Just tell me. I opened my mouth to speak, to tell her the truth, but the words caught in my throat. What could I say? How could I explain this to her? How could I explain that the person she thought she knew, Tyler, was slipping away, replaced by someone else? Just then, my phone buzzed on the counter, breaking the tension in the room. I turned away quickly, almost grateful for the distraction. But when I picked up the phone and saw the name on the screen, my stomach sank. It was a text from an unknown number. "Time's running out. You know what you need to do." The message sent a chill through me, the words eerie and cryptic. I glanced at Emma, but she was still watching me closely, waiting for me to say something, anything. My mind raced as I tried to figure out what this meant. Who was sending these messages? What was it trying to tell me? And more importantly, how did they know? The message from the unknown number haunted me all through dinner, its cryptic warning echoing in my mind. I couldn't focus on the meal in front of me, couldn't stop thinking about the words that felt like a threat and a promise at the same time. "Time's running out. You know what you need to do." I had to get a grip. I couldn't let Emma see that something was wrong. She was still watching me, still trying to read me with that perceptive gaze of hers, but I kept my face neutral, trying to act as normal as possible. But how could I? How could I pretend to be Tyler when I wasn't sure who he was anymore? And this transformation, this person I was becoming, was slipping further away from me by the second. Tessa wasn't just a name I called myself when I wore a dress. She was becoming a part of me, pushing Tyler into the shadows, taking over the space that used to be mine. Emma had always been kind, loving, and supportive. I knew she didn't deserve the secrets I was keeping from her. But how could I tell her the truth? How could I explain that the magic ring she gave me had turned my life upside down, had changed the very fabric of my being? That every time I wore it, I felt less like the man she married and more like someone else entirely? The anxiety twisted in my gut, but I kept eating, my fork shaking slightly in my hand. Emma was still watching me, and this time, her gaze wasn't soft or loving. It was sharp, searching. It was as though she knew something was off, that something was hiding behind my carefully constructed facade. When dinner was over, Emma stood up to clear the table, but I couldn't bring myself to help. I had to escape. I had to think. My mind was a maze of confusion, guilt, and fear. I had to figure out who was behind these messages. And why did it feel like everything was spiraling out of control? I excused myself and headed to the living room, hoping that some space would clear my mind. I sat down on the couch, the dim light from the lamp casting a soft glow around the room. My phone sat next to me on the coffee table, buzzing again. This time, I picked it up quickly, my heart pounding in my chest. The message was clear, ominous, but clear. "You're close. But you're not there yet. Don't wait too long." I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of it. What did it mean? Was this person threatening me? Or was it some kind of twisted guidance, pushing me to do something I wasn't ready to do? I felt like I was losing my mind. The ring on my finger felt heavier than ever. It was as if it was calling to me, urging me to embrace the woman I was becoming. Tessa was already in the mirror, in the clothes, in my mind. She was taking over, and I didn't know how to stop her. I glanced up at the hallway, hearing Emma moving around in the kitchen. She was probably wondering where I had gone. I couldn't be alone for too long. I couldn't let her see what I was going through, not like this. But something inside me snapped. The fear, the excitement, the guilt, it all mixed together in a moment of pure intensity. I stood up, almost without thinking, and walked into the bedroom. I reached for the drawer where Emma kept her things, her dresses, her jewelry, the clothes that felt like another world to me. I had to try. I had to see what would happen if I let Tessa take full control. My hands trembled as I pulled out the sleek black dress, the fabric smooth under my fingers. I moved toward the mirror, the thrill of anticipation growing with every step. My heart raced as I slowly began to undress, letting go of Tyler for a moment, allowing Tessa to step in. The transformation felt almost automatic now. I knew the steps by heart, the dress, the makeup, the heels. But tonight it was different. Tonight, there was something else stirring inside of me. This wasn't just about dressing up anymore. It wasn't just about the ring or the thrill of being someone else. It was about embracing this new version of myself. The makeup went on first, carefully, as if it were an art I had perfected. The eyeliner shaped my eyes into something more feminine, and the lipstick added a bold, confident color to my lips. But it wasn't just about looking like a woman, it was about feeling like one. The heels slipped onto my feet, clicking against the floor with each step. I moved around the room, practicing walking in them, the way I held myself, the way I turned my head. The mirror reflected a woman I didn't recognize, but was growing more comfortable with. And then, I caught sight of something that stopped me dead in my tracks, the ring. It glinted on my finger, casting a soft, golden glow in the light. I didn't want to wear it anymore. I didn't want to feel this transformation taking over me. But as soon as I thought about taking it off, a strange force held me in place. The ring felt like it was attached to my soul, an anchor to this new identity I wasn't sure I was ready for. The door opened behind me, and Emma stepped in, her eyes widening in shock as she took in the scene before her. My heart skipped a beat, my breath catching in my throat. Tyler. Her voice was soft, almost too soft, like she was trying to make sense of what she was seeing. I froze, unsure of what to say. The dress, the makeup, the heels, it was all too much. Too much to explain, too much to hide. But this wasn't the time to hide anymore. Not with Emma standing there, her eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and concern. Emma, I stammered, my words catching in my throat. I didn't know how to explain this, how to tell her everything. The guilt washed over me, and I wanted to run, to hide, to turn back into the man she married. But it was too late. There was no turning back now. She took a step forward, her gaze not leaving mine. "What is this, Tyler?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What's going on? Why didn't you tell me?" The weight of her question hung in the air like a storm cloud. I didn't know how to answer. I didn't know how to explain the magic of the ring, the pull of Tessa, or the fear that had taken hold of me. But before I could speak, something strange happened. The ring, still resting on my finger, began to glow brightly. It wasn't just the reflection of the light. It was as if it was alive, pulsating with an energy I couldn't control. I gasped, trying to remove it, but my fingers wouldn't cooperate. The ring was like a force that had me in its grip, and I felt my body shift, slightly at first, but then more dramatically. My muscles tightened, my chest ached, and the reflection of Tessa in the mirror became clearer. Emma took a step back, her eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" she whispered. The glow from the ring intensified, and in that moment, I realized something terrifying. The ring wasn't just an accessory. It wasn't just a gift. It was a curse, a binding force that was slowly but surely trapping me in this new identity. As I watched the changes take hold, I felt myself losing control. The tension in my body, the overwhelming pressure, it was too much. I needed to break free. But how? "Emma?" I whispered, my voice cracking. I didn't know what this was. I didn't know how to stop it. But Emma wasn't looking at me anymore. Her gaze was fixed on the ring, her face pale with shock. And then, I heard a voice, a whisper, soft and sinister, that seemed to come from the very air around us. "It's too late." The room felt like it was closing in on me, suffocating me. My breath came in short gasps as I stared at the glowing ring on my finger, its pulsating light reflecting in Emma's wide eyes. It was as if the ring had a life of its own, forcing me into something I couldn't control. "It's too late," the voice whispered again, this time from within me. It wasn't my own voice. It was a deeper, more confident version of me, of Tessa. I could feel her presence rising inside, drowning out Tyler's resistance. Emma stepped back further, her hand pressing to her mouth, her eyes brimming with confusion and fear. The shock on her face was a reflection of my own internal chaos. I couldn't believe what was happening, couldn't understand how everything had spiraled so far out of my control. I opened my mouth to speak, to try and explain, but nothing came out. My throat felt tight, as if the words had been stolen from me. I glanced down at my hands, now delicate and trembling, and I could see the transformation fully take hold. Tessa was more than just the clothes I wore. She was becoming me, and I was becoming her. "What is happening to you?" Emma's voice was trembling, her confusion turning into panic. She moved closer, but I recoiled, instinctively pulling away. I wasn't sure if I was pulling away from her or from myself. "Emma, please." I managed to croak, but the voice that came out didn't sound like my own. It was higher, softer, but filled with something else I couldn't explain, a strange mixture of confidence and desperation. I don't know what's happening. I never meant for this to happen. I could feel the ring pulling at me, urging me to embrace it, to become what it wanted me to be. It was no longer just an accessory, it was a prison, and I was trapped in it. Emma reached for my hand, her fingers brushing against mine. The touch sent a shock through my body, and for a split second, I thought I might be able to break free from this identity, this transformation, this curse. But when I looked into her eyes, I saw nothing but fear and uncertainty. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I couldn't answer. I didn't know anymore. The ringing in my ears grew louder, and I could feel the pull of Tessa growing stronger. Her confidence was overtaking me, her voice becoming more dominant in my mind, louder than my own. I couldn't fight it anymore. In that moment, the reflection in the mirror wasn't me anymore. It was Tessa. It was the woman I had become, the one I was terrified of, yet simultaneously, the one I had started to crave. "You're not Tyler anymore," the voice in my head whispered. I turned to face Emma, desperate for her to understand, to see the truth of what was happening. I wanted to tell her that it wasn't my fault, that I wasn't choosing this. But the words wouldn't come. "Emma," I managed to say again, my voice breaking. "I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you." But Emma wasn't listening. Her face had gone pale, and she stumbled backward, her eyes glued to the ring on my finger. "It's the ring, isn't it?" she asked, her voice shaking. "You never told me what it really was. You lied to me." The accusation stung like a slap, but I couldn't deny it. I had kept the truth from her, hidden the magic of the ring, kept her in the dark about what was happening to me. And now, the consequences were here, in the form of a stranger in my reflection. I reached out, but Emma stepped back again, her eyes not meeting mine. "I don't know you anymore," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Her words hit me like a wave. They crushed me, shattering the fragile piece of Tyler that was left inside of me. I wasn't Tyler anymore. I was Tessa. And Tessa had taken over everything. The pain of her rejection felt like a weight in my chest, suffocating me. I wanted to run to her, beg her to understand, but I knew it was too late. This transformation, this new identity, was too far gone. I could feel it consuming me, pulling me further away from the man I used to be. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. It was sharp and insistent, and for a moment it felt like time had stopped. My heart skipped a beat as I turned toward the door.
Who could that be?
Emma's face was stricken with fear as she glanced nervously toward the door. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice trembling. I don't know," I said, my voice barely a whisper. My pulse raced as I tried to gather my thoughts. Who would be knocking at this hour? It couldn't be anyone I knew. Not like this. The knock came again, louder this time, followed by a voice, strange, unfamiliar, and cold. "I think we need to talk." Emma's eyes went wide, and she backed away from the door. I felt my heart race faster. Who was on the other side? Why did it feel like everything was about to crash down all at once? I didn't know what was happening, but I knew one thing. Everything was unraveling. And I had no idea how I was going to keep this secret from destroying everything. "What do we do?" Emma whispered, her voice shaking. I had no answer. All I could do was stare at the door, my mind racing with fear and confusion. I had no idea who was on the other side, but I knew one thing for sure. My life, our lives, would never be the same again. The door swung open, and a figure stepped into the room.